Democracy. It's any form of government in which the will of the people plays a larger role than either the will of a single ruler or the will of an elite group. It is rule not by the one or by the few, but by the many. We hear that it's imperiled, but why should we care? Why should democracy be one of our big ideas? Sure, ancient Athens touted itself as a democracy, and the Roman Republic valued the will of the people. But then for the next 2,000 years, almost nobody thought it was a good idea. And the best case against it was made by a philosopher who happened to live in the Athenian democracy, Plato. You'll learn about Plato elsewhere this week, but right now, let's talk about why we should care about democracy today. There are 3 selling points. 1, people say that democratic voting gives us the best results. There's a famous argument that if everyone who votes is even slightly more likely to be right than wrong, then as you add up all those slightlys, you get a high probability of the right outcome. Now, this works pretty well for a jury, but the jury system is designed to make jurors impartial. They don't have a personal stake in the verdict. They only care about justice and the common good. But general voters like us often vote out of self-interest. And my self-interest often conflicts with yours. I want to keep the park behind my house, and you want a road through it so that your business will make more money. To put it harshly, we voters are often corrupt. Also, the jury system is designed to make the jurors experts. The trial process provides them with everything they need to know in order to make their decision. But we voters usually have only a slice of the evidence. The ballot tells me which candidates are from my party, but how can I know that I can trust them? To put it harshly, we voters are often ignorant. This doesn't always add up to good results. So that brings us to selling point number 2. People say that democracy is not just about voting, it's about participating and deliberating. Participating means engagement, which should enable us to understand each other's interests, and so to care more about the common good. Deliberating really means education, which should enable us to learn more, and so to become more expert. So democracy as a participatory and deliberative system is good for us, and this ideally makes us more like juries. Unfortunately, it sometimes backfires. We often close our hearts to those whose interests are different, and we often close our minds to facts that are inconvenient. And so we can end up even more corrupt and ignorant. And when this happens, we're in danger of a tyranny of the majority, of the corrupt and ignorant majority voting to strip the minority of rights that it holds dear. So the downside is that democracy by itself may not be any better than any other form of government. It must be supported by guarantees of liberty and justice for all. And these guarantees must permeate all of its institutions. But the upside is that when this is the case, democracy is the best by far of all the bad forms of government. Of course, we hope it will give us better results, as in point 1, and we hope that it will make us better people, as in point 2. But the one thing that it must do, and this is point 3, is to foster legitimacy. Governments, as you recall, exist to provide security and welfare for the people who would otherwise be in a state of nature. And legitimacy, as we have seen, means that the government is delivering on that promise while causing no harm. We, the people, by democratically participating, deliberating, and voting, hold the government accountable. We are not only the thermometer, which records the legitimacy temperature, we are the thermostat, which corrects it. The government exists for us, and democracy is the best mechanism for never letting it forget that fundamental fact. Think back to the fanciful state of nature described by Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. Imagine us assembling a summit of the savages to confer about whether to form a government or just to soldier on in the solitary wild. On day 1, We confer about how, by empowering some of our group, they could provide the rest of us with more safety and with more comfort and with more opportunity. Then on day 2, after sleeping on it, we agonize some over the ways that those in power could misuse that power and maybe make us sorry we ever called this conclave to begin with. So legitimacy is a day 2 topic. Then on day 3, after another fitful night's sleep, we have a good idea. We include a system whereby those in power must be voted on regularly. If they're delivering, if they are legitimate, then they stay. If we're sorry, if they are illegitimate, then they go. So in a way, democracy is a day 3 topic. So in case you were wondering why we call this meeting, that is the one in the wild, it was not initially about democracy. But if we do not currently properly implement democracy, we'll be sorry we ever called it to begin with. Democracy is the best way to foster legitimacy. And that's the big idea for week 4.